Hello and welcome to the recorded webinar for coding for students with foster care, juvenile justice, and residential mental health placements. My name is Dan Frummel. I'm the Director of Non-Traditional Educational Programs and Consolidated Planning and Monitoring. As you know, the importance of proper coding procedures is critical to serving students in these different placements. It helps to establish a line of accountability. There are funding implications for it, and it promotes stability for students. By the end of this recorded webinar, participants should be able to describe the different placement options for students who are neglected or delinquent, explain the requirements for serving and funding students in the various non-traditional settings, and understand the coding requirements for students in the various non-traditional settings. We're going to go over the various different types of placements that students can find themselves in so that you fully understand the wide array of placements and different coding procedures for each one of those placements. We'll talk about students in foster care, students in juvenile detention centers, students that are placed through the Department of Children's Services in their educational placements, students that are in residential facilities through a physician's order, court-ordered day treatment programs, and then we'll take some time at the end to walk through some scenarios where we put it all together. Because what we know is that students typically don't stay in just one type of these settings. They'll tend to move from one setting to the next, and so it's important to understand the whole picture as you work with this group of students as they move maybe from foster care to a juvenile detention center or into a residential treatment facility and then back into the community. Over the past several years, various pieces of legislation and changes have occurred that have put an increased emphasis on this at-risk group of students. We saw the first of this in 2011 with the passing of Public Chapter 426, and this requires funding for students that are placed through a physician's order in a licensed residential treatment center. Then in 2015, with the reauthorization of ESSA, we saw the increased emphasis on students that are in foster care and the coding requirements that go along with that group of students. In 2017, the state legislature passed the law requiring that students in juvenile detention centers are provided an education by the local school system. And then in 2018, we saw the passing of the law that requires funding for students that are placed in court-ordered day treatment facilities. And so we're going to walk through each one of these, and as we go through these, we'll explain the requirements for coding each one of these groups, and then walk through several examples as well. So we're going to start off with foster care. Some key points with foster care. Again, with the reauthorization of ESSA, they placed an increased emphasis on the importance of educational stability for students in foster care, and that students remain in their school of origin whenever it is in their best interest when they go into foster care. And the school district and DCS must provide transportation for those students. So I always like to emphasize the definition and identification of students that are in foster care. So students in foster care are children placed away from their parents or legal guardians by DCS. And it's important to note that that placement is made by the Department of Children's Services. If it is just a relative caregiver helping out, taking over responsibilities, or if the placement is not made through DCS, then those children will not be considered to be in foster care with the federal definition. And foster students are listed on the monthly report from DCS that the department sends to LEA's school nutrition departments. Again, does not include students who are staying with a family, friend, or relative, are homeless per the McKinney-Vento definition, or are considered runaways. For coding students in foster care, we want to use the code FOSO1, foster care, only for students on the DCS foster care list. Students on the DCS foster care list are part of the economically disadvantaged subgroup and are coded with a J-Direct certification of economic disadvantage student classification in addition to the FOSO1 student classification because they are categorically eligible for free school meals due to their foster care status. FOSO1 and J-direct classification remains with the student for the entire school year, regardless of the change in foster care status. So again, to highlight that for a third time, the important piece there is that we want to have both of those classifications in place, the FOSO1 and the J-direct cert. For accountability assessment and VEP funding, the economically disadvantaged subgroup consists of students eligible for free school meals due to direct certification of economically disadvantaged as participants in federal, state income nutrition programs. And you can see the categorical eligibility for their status as foster care, homeless, migrant, or runaway. I'm going to provide some examples now for us to go through to help kind of practice the coding and ensure we have a good understanding of when we should be coding the student with the FOSO1 classification and when they would not be eligible. For each one of these examples, I'll let you read through it on your own. You may want to pause the recording because I'm going to move on to the answer pretty quickly after showing the slide. So if you want to pause the recording and read through the example, and then when you've decided on what the proper code is, hit resume and we'll go over the answer together. So we see in the first scenario that the answer was B, FOSO1, foster care and J-direct cert. So the student, Carl, is entering foster care and so therefore should be coded as FOSO1, foster care, and J-direct cert. Pretty straightforward on that one. Again, if you want to pause it and read through our second scenario about Bridget. Again, the answer for this one is B. In this scenario, Knox County should withdraw the student, and the student should enroll with Roane County as a standard enrollment. So in this scenario, we saw that Bridget's placement, although she's changing the home that she lives in, that placement was not made by the Department of Children's Services. Therefore, her placement doesn't meet the federal definition of a child in foster care. Her move to another school district should be treated the same as any other student relocating from one district to another. So again, this example highlights the importance that change in placement has to be made by the Department of Children's Services. Another key thing I want to point out with these scenarios is that these are not real scenarios. The names and places have been changed. We just use the real names of school districts to help because geography tends to matter in a lot of these cases. So for foster example care scenario number 3, I'll read through the scenario here, and then if you want to pause and take a minute to review it. Nick has lived in and attended school in Robertson County for the past 4 years. He's placed in foster care in Cheatham County. After the bid meeting, it is decided that he should attend the new school in Cheatham County. 6 months later, Nick's placement is disrupted, and he's moved to a group home in Davidson County. The team decides to have a bid meeting to discuss the best placement for Nick. At this time, which 2 schools should the bid team be considering for placement? A, Robertson County Schools, B, Davidson County Schools, or C, Cheatham County Schools? The answer to this question is B, A and C, Davidson County Schools and Cheatham County Schools. So Nick changed schools during his first foster care placement. After the initial move, Cheatham County Schools became the school of origin. The team should determine if it is in his best interest to remain at Cheatham County Schools or if he should attend school in Davidson County. Robertson County Schools is no longer considered his school of origin in this scenario. The next area that we're going to cover is juvenile justice. And so again, this law passed in 2017, and it required that school districts that have a juvenile detention center within their boundaries provide educational services to those students. When a JDC notifies an LEA that a general education student has been detained, the student remains enrolled in the LEA regardless of the location of the JDC. The LEA enters the Juvenile Detention Center student classification for the facility, and you can see the JDC student classification slide, in SIS and uploads it to EIS. The juvenile justice point of contact makes arrangements for the student's educational services with the JDC and the other LEA if the JDC is located in another district. And if the student is placed in a JDC in another district, the juvenile justice point of contact works with the receiving LEA to ensure that all educational records are received in a timely manner and that the student is coded properly in the student information system. So again, for general ed students, if you have a general ed student from your district and they go to and they are detained in a JDC in another district, they remain on the roll of your district and are coded with the appropriate JDC code. It's important to note that this is only for general education students, and we'll talk about special education students next. So when a JDC notifies an LEA that a special education student has been detained, the process is different. The student remains enrolled in the LEA only if the JDC is located within the LEA. If the JDC is in another district, the student is withdrawn from that home LEA and enrolled in the receiving LEA, again, if the JDC is located in another LEA. This process ensures that the receiving district, which is responsible for compliance with IDA, has access to the IEP and ED plan, or Easy IEP. The LEA that enrolls the student during the incarceration enters the Juvenile Detention Center student classification for the facility in SIS and uploads it to EIS. So again, if you do not have a JDC in your district and you have a student that's detained in another district with the Juvenile Detention Center, if that student is general ed, they remain on your roll with the appropriate JDC code, and if they are special ed, you withdraw them and they would then enroll in the district with the JDC. As shown on the next slide, each of the state's 17 juvenile detention centers has a separate student classification. The first 3 digits are the letters JDC. The final 2 digits are the number between 1 and 17. The date the student enters the JDC is the student classification begin date, and the date the student leaves the JDC is the student classification end date. And here you see a list of all 17 JDC codes. Let's walk through a couple example scenarios with the juvenile detention centers. Again, student and district names are being used only as examples, and these example scenarios are hypothetical and do not contain specific or identifiable information. In this example, Connor is a general ed student in Jefferson County Schools. He commits a crime and is detained at Sevier County JDC. How should Jefferson County Schools proceed with Connor's enrollment and coding? A, withdraw Connor to Sevier County Schools, as they are now the one providing educational services. B, keep Connor enrolled in Jefferson County Schools and enter the JDC 13 Sevier County Juvenile Detention Center student classification in SIS EIS. Or C, enter withdrawal code 02 in SIS EIS, placed in the custody of the Department of Children's Services to be educated in the Youth Development Center or DCS affiliated school. Again, if you need more time, feel free to pause the recording. The answer is B, keep Connor enrolled and enter the JDC 13 Sevier County Juvenile Detention Center student classification in SIS EIS. Since Connor is a general education student, he should remain enrolled in Jefferson County Schools and be coded as JDC 13. Sevier County must provide educational services for Connor during his time at Sevier County Juvenile Detention Center. The JDC 13 student classification will be used to transfer funds from Jefferson County to Sevier County at the end of the school year for instructional days during the incarceration. Let's try another example. In example number 2, Marcus is a student at Alcoa City Schools who receives special education services for a specific learning disability. He is detained at Blount County JDC for a crime he committed. How should Alcoa City Schools handle Marcus's enrollment and coding? A, code Marcus as JDC02. B, code Marcus as K-code. Or C, Alcoa City Schools withdraws Marcus. Blount County Schools enrolls Marcus and enters the JDC02 Blount County Juvenile Detention Center student classification and SIS-EIS. The answer is C, Alcoa City Schools withdraws Marcus. Blount County Schools enrolls Marcus and enters the JDC02 Blount County Juvenile Detention Center student classification and SIS and EIS. Again, because Marcus is receiving special education services, he must be withdrawn from the sending school district and be enrolled in the district in which the JDC is located. So again, this example highlights the difference between the way that we will code general education students and the way that we will code special education students. The final example for the JDCs. Alan is attending Williamson County Schools as a general education student. He commits a crime and is placed at Bedford County JDC. During his stay, he attends court and is placed in the custody of DCS. DCS has found a placement for Alan at a residential treatment facility with an in-house DCS-approved school, but the opening is not immediately available. Alan is placed back at Bedford County JDC awaiting placement. How should Williamson County Schools proceed with Alan's placement and coding? A, withdraw Alan using withdrawal code 02, placed in the custody of the Department of Children's Services to be educated in the Youth Development Center or DCS-affiliated school. B, code Alan as FOSO1 since he is now in DCS custody. Or C, Alan should remain enrolled in Williamson County Schools and be coded as JDC01. The answer is C, Alan should remain enrolled in Williamson County Schools and be coded as JDC01. Again, Alan is a general education student and therefore should remain enrolled in Williamson County Schools and coded as JDC01 to reflect the placement at Bedford County JDC. Even though Alan was placed into the custody of DCS, the JDC is not a DCS educational program. Alan would be withdrawn using withdrawal code 02 when he goes to the DCS residential placement. So let's talk a little bit about DCS educational placements. This is an area where we've had a lot of requests for technical assistance recently. So DCS approves in-house educational programs in their Level 3 and 4 programs, as well as in some of their Level 2 programs. If a student is attending an in-house school at a DCS educational placement, they should be withdrawn from the school district using withdrawal code 02, placed in the custody of the Department of Children's Services to be educated in a Youth Development Center or DCS-affiliated school. When this happens, DCS is considered an LEA. When a student placed by DCS is attending a DCS in-house school, DCS becomes the LEA for that child. It's important to note that not all DCS placements, though, have in-house DCS-approved schools. We point this out because just because a child goes into the custody of DCS does not mean that they are automatically withdrawn to DCS as the LEA. That would only occur if they're being placed in a in-house DCS-approved school. Examples where they can be in the custody of DCS but still attend the public school would be foster care, where we talked about in the first section of this presentation, or JDCs, which we just talked about. And many Level 2 group homes have their students attending public schools. And so in those cases, they would not be withdrawn to DCS. They would be attending the public school for which they're zoned. Students in the custody of DCS that are placed in a program or home without a DCS in-house school should attend the public school for which the foster family group home or program is zoned. And these students are considered to be in foster care on the DCS foster care list that the school nutrition department receives and should be coded as FOSO1, foster care and J, direct cert. Let's walk through an example. Jacqueline is attending school in Warren County. She is placed in the custody of DCS and is placed at Smoky Mountain Children's Home in Sevier County. The Children's Home contracts with DCS and provides an in-house school for their students. How should Warren County proceed with Jacqueline's enrollment and coding? A, withdraw Jacqueline using withdrawal code 02, withdraw into DCS educational placement. B, keep Jacqueline enrolled and code her as K-code for attending a residential facility. Or C, withdraw Jacqueline so that she can enroll in Sevier County schools. See, the answer is A, withdraw Jacqueline using withdrawal code 02, withdraw into DCS educational placement. Jacqueline is being placed by DCS in a DCS contract placement that contains an approved in-house school. Therefore, she should be withdrawn from Warren County using withdrawal code 02, withdrawn to DCS educational placement. DCS will now serve as the LEA for Jacqueline. Let's walk through another example. Martin is a student in Bradley County Schools. He is placed in the custody of DCS and is placed in a Level 2 group home in Johnson County. The group home does not have an in-house school. How should the school system proceed with Martin's enrollment and coding? A, keep Martin enrolled in Bradley County Schools and code him as FOS01. B, Bradley County withdraws Martin using code 03, transferred to other Tennessee school system. Johnson County enrolls Martin and codes him as FOS01, foster care. Or C, withdraw Martin to DCS custody using code 02. The answer is B, Bradley County withdraws Martin using code 03, transferred to other Tennessee school system. Johnson County then enrolls Martin and codes him as FOS01, foster care. Martin is placed in the custody of DCS, but is placed in a setting that does not contain an in-house DCS-approved school. His placement should be considered a foster care placement, and so he should be coded as FOS01, foster care. Since his school of origin is over 3 hours away from his new home, the district and DCS can clearly determine that this is in his best interest to attend Johnson County schools. Johnson County should immediately enroll Martin and code him as FOS01, foster care. The next group of students we're going to talk about are students that are placed in a residential mental health facility through a physician's order. So in 2011, Public Chapter 426 passed, which states that school districts must allocate funding to residential mental health facilities in the amount equal to per pupil state and local funding, provided that the facility meets the following criteria. The school operates as an approved Category 1 special purpose school. The student was placed through a physician's order, and the student is enrolled in the LEA. Students attending a residential mental health facility under these conditions should remain enrolled in the home LEA and coded with a K code. Residential mental health facilities can bill LEAs for instructional days that fall within the LEA calendars, and billing must occur within 30 days of the close of each month. Let's walk through a couple of examples here. Caitlin is an 11th grade student in Bartlett City Schools. After a series of mental health crises, she is placed at the Village in Blount County, a psychiatric residential mental health facility, through a physician's order. There's no DCS involvement. She's also being served under an IEP. What are some of the next steps the school district should take to ensure it is properly serving Caitlin? A, withdraw her to Blount County Schools as they will now become the LEA. B, withdraw her as she is now attending a private school. C, keep her on the roll in Bartlett City and code her with a K code. The answer is C, keep her on the roll in Bartlett City Schools and code her with the K code. Caitlin was placed at a residential mental health facility through a physician's order, so therefore she must be coded with a K code and remain on the district's roll. Final piece I want to stress with the residential treatment centers, many of the centers serve students that are placed through a physician's order and also students that are placed by the Department of Children's Services. So you may have two children from your district going to the same facility, and in one case the child might be withdrawn using code 02 because DCS is the one that is placing them there, and the other child might be a K code because a physician's order is placing them at the facility. So it's important to not only understand where the student was placed, but it's equally important to understand how they were placed there. Were they placed through a physician's order, or were they placed through the Department of Children's Services? Because that will dictate what the school system's responsibility is in each one of those scenarios. The final area for us to discuss is court-ordered day treatment programs, which is one of the newest programs coming about in 2018. With this program, school districts must allocate funding to qualifying day treatment programs in the amount equal to per pupil state and local funding, provided that the facility operates as an approved Category 1 special purpose school. The facility provides a minimum of 32 hours per week of educational instructional services. The student was court-ordered into the treatment program. The student is enrolled in the LEA and was enrolled in the LEA in the previous academic year, and the student is not in the custody of DCS. Students attending a residential mental health facility under these conditions should have remained enrolled in the home LEA and be coded with the QDT 00 classification. This list is a little bit more straightforward in that there are currently only 3 programs that are considered the day treatment programs. We have Carroll County Juvenile Court, Carroll Academy, Montgomery County Juvenile Court, Teen Learning Center, which is Genesis, and then Rutherford County Juvenile Court, Teen Learning Center, Genesis. And so these are the only 3 that are currently listed as part of this program. Let's go through an example. Selena has been court-ordered to Genesis Academy to complete a 90-day program. She is currently a 9th grade student in Rutherford County. How should the school district proceed? A, Selena should remain on the roll and be coded with QDT 00 code. B, Selena should withdraw from the district as she is now attending a private school. Or C, Selena should remain on the roll and be coded with a K code as she is attending a treatment program. The answer is A, Selena should remain on the roll and be coded with the QDT 00 code. Selena has been court-ordered into the approved program and must remain on the roll for the district. The district should use the QDT 00 code to properly code her in its student management system. I'm now going to provide 3 examples that help to put all this into practice because, like we talked about at the beginning of the presentation, many of the students tend to move from one program and into the next, and it's important to understand how the different pieces interact with each other. Again, after I read each scenario, feel free to pause for a moment and outline a plan of action, and then we'll go over the answer together. In our first example, Brian is a 10th grader in McMinn County. Due to some turmoil in the family, Brian enters DCS custody and is placed in foster care in a foster home in McMinn County. Although he is now zoned for another school, he is still within the district. 6 months later, Brian is arrested and sent to Hamilton County JDC, where he stays for 1 month before being placed by DCS at Mountain View Academy in Jefferson County. Outline the different steps the district should take to ensure that Brian is properly served and accounted for. And Mountain View Academy does operate a DCS in-house school. So when Brian enters foster care, a bid meeting should be held to determine if he should attend the new school he is zoned for or if he should remain enrolled in his school of origin. Additionally, Brian should be coded as FOS01. When Brian enters the JDC, the school district should code him with a JDC 05 in order to reflect the placement at Hamilton County JDC. Hamilton County must provide educational services to Brian during his time at the JDC. When Brian is moved to Mountain View in Jefferson County, he should be withdrawn to DCS educational placement using withdrawal code 02. DCS now becomes the LEA for Brian, as Mountain View has an in-house educational program approved by DCS. So in this scenario, we see Brian remaining with the school system up until the point that he's placed in DCS custody. Example scenario number 2. Carl is a sophomore in Cheatham County Schools. After some significant behavioral and emotional struggles, he is placed through a physician's order at Oak Plains Academy in Montgomery County. Oak Plains Academy is a Category 1 special purpose school. 3 months into his treatment, his parents make the decision to relinquish custody to DCS. DCS continues his placement at Oak Plains. Carl's behaviors escalate when he is placed in DCS custody, and he assaults several staff at the facility, which result in him being sent to Davidson County JDC. Carl stays at the JDC for 2 months before being released to a group home in Murray County. The group home does not have an in-house school. Outline the different agencies that are responsible for Carl during this journey and how he should be coded as he moves through the system. It's important to note that Oak Plains is also a DCS educational placement as well. So I'm looking over this scenario. Initially, Carl is placed at Oak Plains Academy through a physician's order. So Cheatham County Schools should retain him on their roster and code him with the K code. When Carl's parents relinquish custody to DCS, Cheatham County should withdraw Carl using withdrawal code 02, withdrawn to DCS educational placement. DCS is now the LEA for Carl. After the assault, when Carl is placed in the Davidson County JDC, DCS should code Carl with the JDC 04 student classification. When Carl is released from the JDC and placed in the group home in Murray County, he should enroll in Murray County and be coded as FOS01 to reflect his placement in foster care. And finally, let's walk through one more example scenario. Juan is a 10th grade student in Granger County receiving special education services. He commits a crime and is sent to Richard L. Bean, JDC, in Knox County for 2 months. While there, his crime is determined serious enough to send him to Wilder Youth Development Center in West Tennessee. He serves a 9-month sentence at Wilder before being released to a group home in Knox County, where he spends 3 months before returning to his family in Granger County. Take a moment to outline the different steps on Juan's journey and the different districts that are responsible along that journey. So reviewing this scenario, when Juan is sent to Richard L. Bean, he should withdraw from Granger County Schools and enroll in Knox County Schools as he is being served under an IEP. Knox County Schools will code Juan with a JDC-10 student classification to reflect his placement at Richard L. Bean. When he leaves Richard L. Bean for Wilder YDC, Knox County should withdraw him using code 02, withdrawn to DCS educational placement. DCS is now the LEA for Juan. Upon his release to the group home in Knox County, Juan should enroll in Knox County Schools, and he should be coded as FOS01, as he is now in the foster care in the group home attending public school. When he finally returns to his family in Granger County, he should enroll using the same procedures and coding as any other typical enrollment. So again, today we reviewed the different placements that students can attend and the different responsibilities for the school systems depending on those placements, walking through foster care, juvenile detention centers, placement through Department of Children's Services, residential facilities, through a physician's order, or if they're court-ordered into a program. And then we took some time to put those different scenarios together and see how the different systems interact with each other. These responsibilities can be complicated at times, and so the department is committed to helping school districts and facilities as students move through the different placements. So if you have any questions about the proper coding or serving of students in one of the various settings, please contact one of your regional non-traditional educational program consultants that are listed on the screen. Thank you for your time today, and please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you.